When we talk about Apple, it's easy to just think about the latest iPhone or their sleek design, but for anyone looking to invest in 2025, the real story is so much bigger. It starts with a scale that is, frankly, almost hard to wrap your head around.
So let's start with this number. It's pretty staggering. If you had put just $1,000 into Apple's IPO back on December 12th, 1980, and you just held on, that investment would have grown by 249,900%. It's truly one of the most incredible stories of wealth creation we've ever seen.
And believe me, that story is far from over. Today, Apple's market cap is sitting at a mind-blowing $3.74 trillion. To put that into perspective, that's bigger than the entire economy of most countries on this planet. This isn't just a company anymore, it's a global economic force, all built on an installed base of over 2 billion active devices. But how on earth did we get here? This kind of valuation, it wasn't built on just one hit product. No, it was forged through these distinct eras of innovation that completely transformed the company, taking it from a garage computer maker to the absolute juggernaut of hardware and services it is today. You can really see how each milestone here acted like a new rocket stage for their growth. The IPO in 1980 was the launch, right? Then the iPod in 2001, along with the Mac, really built the brand. But 2007, the iPhone was the real game changer. It wasn't just a new phone, it was the seed for this massive ecosystem of hardware, software, and those super high margin services that now power the whole business. So, we've established the financial side of things is, well, incredible. But for a company this big, with this much influence, the traditional numbers don't tell the whole story anymore. As an investor today, you've got to consider things like supply chain risk, regulatory pressure, and what the brand really stands for long term. And that brings us to a really crucial piece of the modern investment puzzle. When you operate on a planetary scale, making billions of devices, your environmental strategy stops being a side project. It becomes a core part of your operational and financial reality. So the question is, what is Apple actually doing about it? Well, their answer is one of the most ambitious corporate environmental plans in the world, and it all revolves around a single powerful deadline, the year 2030. This quote from Apple's own report really gets to the heart of it all. It shows that they have successfully, and this is huge, they've successfully decoupled their massive financial growth from their carbon emissions. They're proving you can actually grow the business while shrinking your environmental footprint. And when you look at where those emissions are coming from, it becomes so clear why this matters. It's not their corporate offices, that's just 2%. The overwhelming majority, we're talking nearly 60%, is from manufacturing. Another 30% is from you and me actually using the products. So to make a real dent, Apple knew it had to go way beyond its own walls. And that's exactly what Apple 2030 is. It's this massive commitment to make every single product, from mining the materials all the way to the electricity you use to charge it, completely carbon neutral by 2030. And how do you tackle a problem that huge? Well, you break it down. They're focusing on the three biggest culprits we just saw: the materials that go into the products, the electricity used to make them, and the transportation needed to ship them all over the world. So this all sounds great on paper, but what does this massive effort actually look like in the real world? It really comes down to some amazing innovation in technology, energy, and even the way they design their products. On the technology front, for instance, they're building these incredible disassembly robots, like this one named Daisy. It can take apart 29 different iPhone models to recover key materials, creating a much more circular, sustainable supply chain. And they already got their own house in order. They hit their goal for their own operations years ago. Since 2018, every single Apple facility in the world has run on 100% renewable energy. But here's the really big move. Now they're taking that model to their partners. Over 320 of their suppliers are now committed to using clean energy for all Apple production. This is how you start to tackle that massive 59% chunk of the emissions pie. And this is where it gets really smart. Sustainability is now baked right into the product design. The iPhone 15 Pro, for example, was engineered with a new internal frame specifically to make it much easier and cheaper to repair. You see, a phone that's easier to repair lasts longer and creates less waste. It's all part of this bigger, four-part approach to make sure their products stay in use as long as possible, from durable design and long-term software support, all the way to robust trade-in programs. And the scale of this is just enormous. In 2023 alone, these programs helped give a second life to nearly 13 million devices and accessories, keeping them in people's hands and out of landfills. Okay, this is all fantastic stuff, but let's bring it all the way back to our original question. What does any of this mean for an investor who's looking at Apple in 2025? Why should this be a key part of your analysis? Right here, this is the punchline. Between 2015 and 2023, a period of absolutely massive success where revenue shot up 64%, Apple simultaneously cut its carbon emissions by more than half. This is the new playbook for sustainable growth. So for an investor, this strategy translates directly into long-term value. It makes the supply chain less risky, it forces innovation, and it deepens that connection with customers. And this kind of operational excellence, it shows up everywhere in their business. You see it in their R&D, where designing their own A-series and M-series chips gives them this massive performance edge. You see it in their services division, which now brings in a huge portion of profits at margins that hardware can only dream of. And you see it in Tim Cook's leadership, who has mastered a global supply chain on a scale nobody thought was possible. Which leaves us with the critical questions for 2025. Apple's strengths are obvious: that ironclad ecosystem, the explosive growth in services, and an unbelievably powerful brand. But you also have to weigh the risks: the growing regulatory heat on the App Store in the US and Europe, their heavy reliance on the iPhone cycle, and of course, their significant exposure to China for both manufacturing and sales. How Apple balances these incredible strengths against these very real challenges, that's what's going to define its next chapter.